The winter of 2019 arrived early in Helena, Montana. By mid-November, the streets were already blanketed in a thick layer of snow that crunched underfoot, and the breath of anyone who dared venture outside turned into white clouds that dissipated quickly in the freezing air. The small city, with barely 30,000 inhabitants, seemed to sleep under a gray sky that promised more snow before nightfall. Emily Warren woke up that morning with a mixture of anxiety and excitement coursing through her veins. In less than 24 hours, she would be walking down the aisle of St. Helena's Cathedral, the same church where her parents had married 30 years earlier. The wedding dress, a delicate ivory piece with lace sleeves and a flowing train, was waiting for her at Bella's Bridal Boutique on Last Chance Gulch, the main street that cut through the heart of downtown Helena. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Her hazel eyes, framed by dark circles from sleepless nights, reflected a tiredness she tried to hide with makeup. Her light brown hair fell in waves over her shoulders, and she forced a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Daniel would be waiting for her at the rehearsal dinner that evening. Daniel Carter, her fiancé, the man everyone in Helena considered perfect husband material. Emily picked up her phone from the nightstand. 3 missed calls from Daniel, 2 text messages from her mother asking if she'd picked up the dress yet, 1 message from her sister, Claire, reminding her about the bridal shower scheduled for that afternoon. She felt her chest tighten. The weight of expectations was suffocating. She drove through the snow-covered streets in her silver Honda Civic, the heater struggling to keep the interior warm. The boutique was only 15 minutes from her apartment, but the icy roads made the journey slower. Emily parked in front of the store at exactly 10:30 in the morning. The owner, Mrs. Belmont, an elegant woman in her 60s with perfectly coiffed white hair, greeted her with a warm smile. "Emily, dear, today's the big day before the big day," Mrs. Belmont said, clasping her hands together. "Let me get your dress. You're going to look absolutely stunning tomorrow." Emily nodded, her smile mechanical. She waited in the dressing room while Mrs. Belmont carefully brought the garment bag. When she unzipped it and revealed the dress, Emily felt a lump form in her throat. It was beautiful, exactly what she'd dreamed of since she was a little girl. So why did it feel like a prison? "Try it on one more time just to make sure everything's perfect," Mrs. Belmont encouraged. Emily slipped into the dress, feeling the soft fabric against her skin. She looked at herself in the 3-way mirror. The woman staring back at her looked like a bride from a magazine, flawless, radiant, ready for her happily ever after. But inside, Emily felt like she was drowning. "It's perfect," she whispered. Mrs. Belmont beamed. "Your fiancé is a lucky man." Emily changed back into her jeans and sweater, and Mrs. Belmont carefully packed the dress. At 11:15, Emily left the boutique, the garment bag draped over her arm. Security cameras captured her walking to her car, placing the dress in the back seat, and driving away. That footage would later become crucial evidence. She didn't go straight home. Instead, Emily drove to Prospect Avenue and parked near a small coffee shop called Mountain Grounds. She sat alone at a corner table, nursing a black coffee that grew cold as she stared out the window at the falling snow. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Daniel, her mother, Claire. She ignored them all. At 1:30, she left the coffee shop and got back in her car. According to her phone's GPS data, later analyzed by investigators, she drove north on I-15, away from Helena. The highway stretched through vast expanses of snowy plains and pine forests. The temperature had dropped to 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and the sky was a uniform gray that threatened a blizzard. Emily's last known location was at a rest stop near the town of Wolf Creek, about 30 miles north of Helena. A gas station attendant remembered seeing a woman matching her description filling up her tank at around 2:45. The attendant told police that the woman seemed distracted, maybe nervous. She paid cash, $20 for gas, and drove off heading north. After that, Emily Warren vanished. At 6 o'clock that evening, when Emily failed to show up for the rehearsal dinner at the Grand Hotel, Daniel called her repeatedly. No answer. He drove to her apartment. Her car wasn't there. He called her mother, her sister, her friends. No one had heard from her since morning. By 8 o'clock, Daniel reported her missing to the Helena Police Department. The officer on duty, Sergeant Tom Reynolds, a veteran with 23 years on the force, initially suggested that maybe Emily had gotten cold feet and needed space. But Daniel was insistent. "Emily wouldn't do this," he said, his voice cracking. "Something's wrong. I can feel it." At 9:30, a patrol unit found Emily's silver Honda Civic abandoned on a desolate stretch of Highway 200, about 50 miles northeast of Helena. The car was parked on the shoulder, covered in a thin layer of fresh snow. The keys were still in the ignition. The engine was cold. The driver's door was unlocked. Most disturbing, Emily's cell phone was on the passenger seat, its battery at 15%. Her purse was still in the car, containing her wallet with credit cards and her driver's license. The wedding dress lay untouched in the back seat, but Emily was nowhere to be found. Officer Jake Morrison, first to arrive at the scene, radioed in immediately. "We've got an abandoned vehicle, no sign of the driver, possible foul play." Within hours, the search began. Volunteers from Helena and surrounding towns poured in, forming search parties that combed through the frozen forests and along the icy banks of the Missouri River. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging flew over the area. Bloodhounds tracked Emily's scent from the car, but lost it after a quarter mile, as if she'd simply vanished into thin air. The wedding, of course, was canceled. Daniel Carter became the face of the search effort, appearing on local news channels with red-rimmed eyes, pleading for anyone with information to come forward. "Emily, if you're out there, please come home," he said during one broadcast, his voice breaking. "We love you, we just want you safe." The community rallied. Flyers with Emily's photograph, her smiling face, those hazel eyes bright with life, were posted on every telephone pole and every shop window. A reward fund grew to $50,000. Tips flooded in, but none led anywhere. Detective Sarah Chen, assigned to lead the investigation, worked 18-hour days. She interviewed everyone in Emily's life: family, friends, co-workers at the dental office where Emily worked as a receptionist. Everyone described Emily the same way: kind, responsible, excited about her upcoming wedding. No one could think of a reason she'd disappear, except for one person: Michael Harlow, a 42-year-old man who'd worked maintenance at the dental office for 3 years, had quit his job 2 weeks before Emily's disappearance. When Detective Chen tracked him down for questioning, he claimed he'd moved to Washington State for a better job opportunity. His alibi checked out. He'd started working at a construction company in Spokane the week before Emily vanished. "I barely knew her," Michael told Chen during a phone interview. "We'd say hello in the hallways, that's it." Chen filed away the interview and moved on. There was no evidence connecting Michael to Emily's disappearance. No relationship, no motive, no opportunity. As winter deepened and the snow piled higher, hope began to fade. Weeks turned into months. The case grew cold. The months following Emily Warren's disappearance transformed Daniel Carter from a private citizen into a public figure of tragedy. His face became synonymous with loss in Helena, appearing on evening news segments featured in newspaper articles and shared across social media platforms where true crime enthusiasts dissected every detail of the case. Daniel was 29 years old, a financial advisor at Mountain West Bank with a reputation for being reliable and personable. He'd grown up in Helena, attended Capitol High School, and returned after college at the University of Montana to build his career in his hometown. Everyone who knew him described Daniel the same way: steady, ambitious, devoted. The kind of man any parent would want their daughter to marry. He and Emily had met 3 years earlier at a charity fundraiser for the local animal shelter. Daniel had approached her near the refreshment table, complimenting her dress, a simple blue number that brought out her eyes. Emily had laughed, a genuine sound that made Daniel's heart skip. They'd talked for 2 hours that night, discovering shared interests: hiking in the summer, old movies, a love of Thai food. By the end of the evening, Daniel had her phone number. Their courtship had been, by all accounts, picture perfect. Daniel took her to nice restaurants, remembered important dates, got along well with her family. He proposed after 2 years, on a hiking trail overlooking the gates of the mountains, presenting a diamond ring as the sun set behind the limestone cliffs. Emily had said yes, tears streaming down her face. But now, sitting in the living room of the small house he'd purchased for their future together, Daniel stared at the engagement photos arranged on the mantel. In every picture, Emily smiled. But as he looked closer, something he'd done hundreds of times in the past months, he wondered if he'd missed something. A shadow behind her eyes, a tension in her shoulders. Detective Sarah Chen sat across from him, her notebook open on her lap. It was March 2020, 4 months since Emily's disappearance. The case had officially gone cold, but Chen continued to follow up periodically, hoping for a break. "I know this is difficult, Daniel," Chen said, her voice gentle but professional. "But I need to ask again, did Emily ever mention wanting to leave? Any concerns about the wedding, about your relationship?" Daniel shook his head, running his hands through his dark hair. He'd lost weight since November, his clothes hanging looser on his frame. No, never. We were happy. We had plans buying this house, talking about kids, where we'd go on our honeymoon. She was excited. Was she under any stress? Work, family, anything? Her job was fine. She loved working at Dr. Morrison's office. Her family. Daniel paused, choosing his words carefully. Her mom could be a bit much sometimes, very involved in wedding planning, but Emily handled it. Chen made a note. She'd interviewed Emily's mother, Patricia Warren, multiple times. Patricia was a force of nature, opinionated, controlling, with specific ideas about how her daughter's life should unfold. Several of Emily's friends had mentioned in their statements that Patricia had been overwhelming during the wedding preparations, insisting on guest list changes, critiquing Emily's choices, making the planning process more stressful than joyful. What about friends? Anyone Emily was particularly close to? Her sister Claire mostly, and her friend Jenna from college. They talked on the phone pretty regularly, but I already told you all this. Chen nodded. She had indeed spoken with both women extensively. Claire Warren, Emily's younger sister by 3 years, had been devastated by the disappearance. She told Chen that Emily had seemed tired in the weeks leading up to the wedding but attributed it to normal pre-wedding stress. Jenna Michaels, Emily's college roommate who now lived in Bozeman, said the same thing. But there was something Chen kept coming back to, a detail that nagged at her but seemed too insignificant to pursue aggressively. 2 weeks before Emily disappeared, Claire had mentioned that Emily had seemed distant during a bridesmaid dress fitting. When Claire asked if everything was okay, Emily had smiled and said, "Just tired." But Claire remembered thinking her sister's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Chen had also obtained Emily's phone records. In the month before her disappearance, Emily had made several calls to a women's crisis helpline. Each call lasted between 5 and 15 minutes. When Chen contacted the helpline, they confirmed someone had called from Emily's number, but couldn't disclose the content of the conversations due to confidentiality policies. This information troubled Chen deeply. Why would a happy bride-to-be be calling a crisis helpline? She'd confronted Daniel about it in January, showing him the phone records. He'd seemed genuinely shocked. "I had no idea," he'd said, his face pale. "Why wouldn't she tell me if something was wrong?" Chen had also noticed something else in the records. Emily had been texting someone whose number wasn't saved in her contacts. The texts were frequent, sometimes multiple times a day, starting about 6 months before her disappearance. Chen had traced the number to a prepaid phone, purchased with cash at a Walmart in Great Falls. Untraceable. The content of the texts had been deleted from Emily's phone before she disappeared, but the metadata showed they were often sent late at night, when Daniel would presumably be asleep. When Chen asked Daniel if he knew who Emily might have been texting, he'd said no. He seemed hurt by the question, as if Chen were suggesting Emily had been unfaithful. "We trusted each other," Daniel had said firmly. "Emily wasn't seeing anyone else. That's impossible." But Chen had been a detective long enough to know that people often kept secrets from those closest to them. The question was, what had Emily been hiding? By the spring of 2020, the case was effectively stalled. The FBI had been brought in briefly to assist, given the possibility of interstate foul play, but they found no evidence of abduction or human trafficking. Emily's bank accounts hadn't been touched. Her credit card showed no activity. It was as if she'd simply ceased to exist. The theories multiplied. Some believed Emily had been killed, her body hidden somewhere in the vast Montana wilderness. Others thought she'd had an accident, fallen into the freezing river, gotten lost in the woods, succumbed to hypothermia. A few whispered that maybe she'd run away, though that seemed unlikely given that she'd left everything behind. Daniel became increasingly fixated on finding answers. He hired a private investigator, a former cop named Rick Dalton, who specialized in missing persons cases. Dalton spent 3 months following leads, interviewing people, reviewing evidence. He found nothing new. "I'm sorry, Daniel," Dalton said during their final meeting. "Without fresh evidence, there's nowhere else to go. Emily's gone, and I can't tell you where." Daniel refused to accept it. He organized annual vigils on the anniversary of Emily's disappearance, keeping her case in the public eye. He maintained a Facebook page called Find Emily Warren that had over 15,000 followers. He gave interviews to true crime podcasts, always ending with the same plea: "If anyone knows anything, please come forward." But as 2020 turned into 2021 and 2021 into 2022, the public's attention waned. Helena moved on. Life continued. Daniel remained frozen in November 2019, unable to grieve, unable to let go. Detective Chen, however, never fully closed the case in her mind. She kept Emily's file on her desk, occasionally reviewing it, looking for something she might have missed. The deleted texts bothered her. The crisis helpline calls bothered her. The wedding dress left perfectly preserved in the back seat bothered her. Everything about Emily's disappearance felt staged, too clean, too deliberate, as if someone had wanted it to look like an abduction, but had been careful not to leave obvious clues. In the summer of 2022, Chen decided to revisit one lead she'd never fully pursued: Michael Harlow, the maintenance worker who'd left town 2 weeks before Emily vanished. She pulled his file. Michael had been 42 at the time of Emily's disappearance, 14 years older than Emily. He'd worked at Morrison Dental for 3 years, always punctual, no complaints. He'd moved to Spokane for a construction job, as he'd claimed. Chen had verified his employment there, but something made her dig deeper this time. She requested Michael's employment records from Morrison Dental and discovered something interesting. His shifts had often overlapped with Emily's. They would have seen each other regularly, perhaps more than Michael had admitted. Chen called Dr. Robert Morrison, Emily's former employer. He was a pleasant man in his late 50s, genuinely heartbroken over Emily's disappearance. "Dr. Morrison, I'm following up on Michael Harlow. You employed him for 3 years. What can you tell me about him?" "Michael? Good worker. Quiet guy. Fixed things around the office, kept everything running. He gave his notice in late October 2019, said he had a better opportunity in Washington. Did he interact much with Emily?" There was a pause. "You know, now that you mention it, I did see them talking a few times. Nothing inappropriate, just friendly conversation. Emily was nice to everyone. Did Michael seem interested in her? Romantically?" Another pause, longer this time. "I never thought about it that way, but maybe. He'd sometimes find reasons to be in the front office when Emily was working. I just figured he was being social." Chen felt a familiar tingle, the instinct that told her she was onto something. "Dr. Morrison, do you remember anything else? Any interaction between them that stood out?" "Well, there was one time, maybe August or September 2019. I came in early and saw them in the parking lot. They were standing by Emily's car, talking. It looked intense, like a serious conversation. When they saw me, they both looked startled and kind of stepped apart. I didn't think much of it at the time." Chen's pulse quickened. "Did you mention this to anyone?" "No. Should I have? I mean, it seemed innocent, just coworkers talking." After the call, Chen pulled Michael's current address in Spokane. Then she made a decision that would change everything. She would pay Michael Harlow an unannounced visit. But before she could make the trip, something else happened that would crack the case wide open. In January 2023, 4 years after Emily's disappearance, the Helena Police Department received an anonymous tip through their online portal. The message was brief. "Emily Warren is alive. She's living in Fernley, Nevada using the name Anna Blake. She's with Michael Harlow. You should check 2847 Desert Rose Lane." Detective Sarah Chen stared at the computer screen in her cramped office at the Helena Police Department, reading the anonymous tip for the 5th time. The message had come through the department's online portal at 2:47 a.m. on January 18, 2023, a Wednesday. The timestamp showed it had been submitted from an IP address that traced back to a public library in Reno, Nevada. "Emily Warren is alive. She's living in Fernley, Nevada, using the name Anna Blake. She's with Michael Harlow. You should check 2847 Desert Rose Lane." Chen's first instinct was skepticism. In the 4 years since Emily's disappearance, the department had received dozens of tips, sightings in grocery stores, airports, bus stations across the country. Every single one had turned out to be a dead end. People saw what they wanted to see, or they were chasing the reward money, or they were simply mistaken. But this tip was different. It named Michael Harlow specifically, the maintenance worker who'd left town weeks before Emily vanished. The same man Chen had been planning to visit in Spokane. The coincidence was too significant to ignore. Chen picked up her phone and dialed her partner, Detective Marcus Webb, a 38-year-old investigator who'd joined the case in 2021. Webb answered on the second ring. "Marcus, we got a tip. A real one, I think. Can you come in?" 20 minutes later, Webb was sitting across from Chen's desk, reading the message on her screen. He was a tall man with a shaved head and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He'd worked gang crimes in Chicago before moving to Montana for a quieter life, but his investigative instincts remained razor sharp. "Fernley, Nevada," Webb said. leaning back in his chair. That's about 40 miles east of Reno. Small town, maybe 20,000 people. Desert climate, completely different from Montana. And Michael Harlow, Chen added, the maintenance guy from Morrison Dental. I was just about to drive to Spokane to interview him again. Webb raised an eyebrow. You think he was involved all along? I think there's more to their relationship than he admitted. Doctor, Morrison told me he saw them having what looked like an intense conversation in the parking lot a few months before she disappeared. And remember those deleted texts from Emily's phone? The prepaid number we couldn't trace? You think that was Harlow? Maybe. If Emily was planning to leave with him, she'd want to keep it secret. Prepaid phone, deleted messages. That's intentional. Webb nodded slowly. Okay, but let's think this through. If Emily wanted to disappear, why stage it so dramatically? The abandoned car, the phone left behind, the wedding dress. That's elaborate. Why not just leave? Pack a bag, drive away, start over somewhere new? Chen had asked herself the same question countless times. Because she wanted people to think something bad happened to her. She wanted them to stop looking. If everyone believes she's dead, they stop searching. She gets her new life without anyone tracking her down. But why? What was she running from? What was she? That was the question that haunted Chen. On paper, Emily's life looked enviable. Good job, loving family, fiancé who seemed devoted to her. But Chen had learned long ago that appearances meant nothing. Behind closed doors, people lived entirely different realities. I need to make some calls, Chen said, reaching for her phone. Starting with the Fernley Police Department, she connected with Chief Deputy Ryan Martinez of the Lyon County Sheriff's Office, which had jurisdiction over Fernley. Martinez listened as Chen explained the situation, her voice careful and professional. We received an anonymous tip regarding a missing person case from 2019. The tip suggests she may be living in Fernley under an assumed name. I'd like to request assistance in conducting a welfare check at an address, 2847 Desert Rose Lane. Martinez was cooperative. Sure, we can send a unit out there. What's the missing person's name? Emily Warren. She disappeared from Helena, Montana on November 22, 2019. She'd be 32 years old now. Brown hair, hazel eyes, 5'6". The tip says she's using the name Anna Blake and living with a man named Michael Harlow. And you want us to do what exactly? Knock on the door? Chen hesitated. This was delicate. If the tip was accurate, Emily had gone to extraordinary lengths to disappear. She wouldn't welcome police showing up at her door. But Chen had a legal obligation to follow up. Emily's case was still officially open, and her family deserved answers. I'd like you to make contact. Verify the identity of the woman living there. If it's Emily, I need to know she's safe and that she's there voluntarily. I'm not looking to force her to come back, I just need to close the case properly. Understood. Give me a few hours, I'll send a deputy out there this afternoon. Chen hung up and turned to Webb. Now we wait. But waiting had never been Chen's strong suit. She spent the next 3 hours researching Fernley, Nevada. It was a small town in the high desert, with wide streets, modest homes, and a quiet lifestyle that attracted retirees and people looking to escape bigger cities. The address listed in the tip, 2847 Desert Rose Lane, appeared on Google Maps as a single-story ranch house in a neighborhood on the outskirts of town, surrounded by desert scrub and distant mountains. She also ran a deep background check on Anna Blake in Nevada. Nothing came up, no driver's license, no employment records, no social media presence. Either the name was completely fabricated, or whoever was using it was living off the grid. That in itself was suspicious. In the digital age, being invisible required deliberate effort. At 4:30 p.m. Mountain Time, Chen's phone rang. It was Chief Deputy Martinez. Detective Chen, we made contact at the address. There's a woman living there who matches your description. Brown hair, hazel eyes, right age range. She's going by Anna Blake. Lives with a man who confirmed his name is Michael Harlow. Chen's heart pounded. Did she admit to being Emily Warren? No, she insisted her name is Anna Blake, said she's never heard of Emily Warren. But here's the thing. She got extremely nervous when we asked. Started trembling, wouldn't make eye contact. The guy, Harlow, he stepped in real quick, said they had a right to privacy and asked us to leave. Did you get a photo? Deputy took a picture from a distance. I'm sending it to you now. Chen's email pinged. She opened the attachment with hands that weren't quite steady. The photo showed a woman standing in the doorway of a modest house, partially obscured by shadow. She had brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a gray sweater. Her face was turned slightly away from the camera, but the profile was unmistakable. Chen pulled up Emily Warren's missing person file and placed the photos side by side. Same nose, same jawline, same way of standing with her weight shifted to one leg. It's her, Chen whispered. That's Emily Warren. Webb looked over her shoulder. Are you sure? It's been 4 years. People change. I'm sure. I've been looking at Emily's face for 4 years. That's her. Martinez's voice came through the phone. What do you want us to do? We can't force her to talk to us if she doesn't want to. She's an adult, not under arrest, and there's no evidence of a crime being committed. Chen knew he was right. If Emily had left voluntarily, and all evidence suggested she had, then she had every legal right to refuse to cooperate. But Chen needed confirmation. She needed Emily to admit who she was, needed to understand why she'd put her family through 4 years of hell. I'm coming to Nevada, Chen said. Don't approach them again until I get there. I'll drive down tomorrow. After hanging up, Chen sat in silence for a moment. Then she picked up her phone and made the call she'd been dreading. Daniel Carter answered on the first ring. Detective Chen, do you have news? Chen chose her words carefully. Daniel, I need you to sit down. I may have found Emily. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, what? Where? Is she alive? I believe so. We received a tip that led us to a woman in Nevada who matches Emily's description. I'm going down there tomorrow to confirm. I wanted you to hear it from me first before this becomes public. I'm coming with you. Daniel's voice was firm, almost desperate. I can't let you do that. This is an active investigation. If it is Emily, I need to handle this carefully. She's been living under a different name, which suggests she left deliberately. I can't have you there when I make contact. It could compromise everything. She's my fiancée. I have a right to see her. Daniel, listen to me. If Emily chose to leave and I show up with you, she'll shut down completely. Let me do my job. If it's her, and she wants to talk to you, I'll make that happen. But right now, I need you to trust me. The line went quiet again. Chen could hear Daniel's ragged breathing. Is she with someone? The tip mentioned a name. Chen hesitated. There was no point lying. Yes, a man named Michael Harlow. He used to work at Morrison Dental. Daniel finished, his voice hollow. The maintenance guy. I remember him. He quit right before Emily disappeared. Did you ever suspect there was something between them? No. God, no, I barely knew he existed. Emily never mentioned him. How could I have been so blind? Chen felt a pang of sympathy for Daniel, but she kept her voice professional. Don't jump to conclusions yet. Let me verify everything first. I'll call you as soon as I know more. After she hung up, Webb spoke. You think he'll stay put? I hope so. But we should get to Nevada fast, just in case. That night, Chen barely slept. She kept thinking about Emily's face in that photo, the way she'd turned away from the camera, the tension in her shoulders. Emily had spent 4 years hiding, building a new life, and now that life was about to come crashing down. The next morning, Chen and Webb caught a 6 a.m. flight from Helena to Reno. By noon, they were driving through the high desert landscape toward Fernley, the brown and beige terrain stretching endlessly under a cloudless blue sky. The temperature was in the mid-50s, warm compared to Montana's winter chill. They arrived at 2847 Desert Rose Lane at 1:30 p.m. The house was exactly as it appeared in Google Maps. A modest, single-story ranch with tan stucco walls and a red tile roof. A white pickup truck was parked in the driveway. The front yard was xeriscaped with desert plants and decorative rocks. Chen and Webb approached the front door, their badges ready. Chen knocked firmly. For a long moment, there was no response. Then the door opened a crack, held by a chain lock. A woman's face appeared in the gap. Brown hair, hazel eyes wide with fear. Anna Blake? Chen said gently. Yes. Who are you? I'm Detective Sarah Chen from the Helena Police Department in Montana. This is Detective Marcus Webb. We'd like to talk to you about Emily Warren. The woman's face went pale. I already told the other officers. I don't know who that is. You have the wrong person. Ma'am, I've been working Emily Warren's case for 4 years. I know what she looks like. May we come in? No, you need to leave. I haven't done anything wrong. A man's voice came from behind her. Anna, don't say anything else. Michael Harlow appeared, putting a protective hand on the woman's shoulder. He was tall, mid-40s, with graying hair and weathered features. His eyes were hard. Officers, you're harassing us. We've asked you to leave. If you don't, we'll call a lawyer. Chen kept her voice calm. Mr. Harlow, we're not here to arrest anyone. We just need to verify this woman's identity. Emily Warren has been missing for 4 years. Her family deserves to know if she's alive. This is Anna Blake, my partner. She's not your missing person. Now please leave our property. Webb spoke up. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is you let us in, we have a conversation, and we clear this up. The hard way is we come back with a court order and a DNA test. Your choice. Michael's jaw tightened, but the woman, Anna or Emily, put a hand on his arm. It's okay, she said softly. Let them in. The interior of the house at 2847 Desert Rose Lane was modest and deliberately sparse, as if the occupants had consciously avoided accumulating anything that might tie them too deeply to this place. The living room held a worn beige couch, a small television on a simple stand, and a coffee table with a few magazines. The walls were bare except for a single landscape painting of desert mountains at sunset. No family photos, no personal mementos, nothing that told the story of who lived here. Detective Sarah Chen and Detective Marcus Webb sat on the couch while the woman who called herself Anna Blake took a seat in an armchair across from them. Michael Harlow stood behind her, his hand resting protectively on the back of her chair. His posture was defensive, his eyes never leaving the detectives. Chen studied the woman carefully. Up close, there was no doubt. The bone structure, the shape of her eyes, the small scar on her left eyebrow from a childhood fall. Details Chen had memorized from Emily Warren's file. This was Emily, but she looked different, thinner. Her hair was shorter, cut just below her shoulders instead of the long waves she'd worn in Montana. She wore no makeup. Her hands trembled slightly as she folded them in her lap. Thank you for agreeing to talk with us, Chen began, keeping her voice gentle. I want to start by saying that we're not here to force you to do anything you don't want to do, but I need you to understand that Emily Warren's case has been open for 4 years. Her family has been searching for her. They deserve to know the truth. The woman's eyes filled with tears, but she said nothing. Anna, Chen continued, using the name deliberately. I've been working this case since November 2019. I know about the abandoned car, the wedding dress in the back seat, the phone left behind. I know about the crisis helpline calls, the deleted texts. I know you called someone repeatedly in the months before you disappeared, someone using a prepaid phone. Was that Michael? Anna, Emily, closed her eyes. A tear slid down her cheek. Michael leaned forward. You don't have to answer that. We should call a lawyer. No, Emily said quietly, opening her eyes. It's over, Michael. They know. Everyone's going to know. She looked at Chen, her face filled with exhaustion and something that might have been relief. Yes, it was Michael. We were planning to leave together. Chen nodded slowly, her heart pounding. This was it, the confession she'd been waiting for. How long were you and Michael involved before you disappeared? Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. About 8 months. We started talking at the dental office. He was kind to me. He listened. And then it became more than that. You were engaged to Daniel Carter at the time. I know. Emily's voice cracked. I know how this looks. I know what people will think. But you have to understand. I was drowning. The engagement, the wedding, all of it. It wasn't what I wanted anymore. Webb pulled out a notebook. Why didn't you just call off the wedding? Why stage a disappearance? Emily let out a bitter laugh. You don't understand what it was like. My mother had been planning my wedding since I was a little girl. She had opinions about everything, the venue, the flowers, the guest list, what I should wear, who I should invite. And Daniel. Daniel was perfect. Everyone loved Daniel. My parents adored him. My friends thought I was so lucky. How could I tell them I didn't want to marry him? So you ran away instead, Chen said without judgment. I tried to break up with him, Emily said, her voice rising with emotion. 3 times I tried. The first time was in August, about 3 months before the wedding. I told Daniel I was having doubts that maybe we were moving too fast. He cried. He told me he couldn't live without me, that I was his whole world. He said if I left him, he didn't know what he'd do. It scared me. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. Did he threaten you? Not directly, but the way he said it, it felt like a threat. Like if I left, something terrible would happen. And then my mother got involved. She told me I was just having pre-wedding jitters, that every bride gets nervous. She said I'd regret it if I threw away a good man like Daniel, so I stayed. What about the second time? Webb asked. October, I tried again. I sat Daniel down and told him I couldn't go through with the wedding, and he refused to hear it. He said I was stressed, that I needed rest. He suggested we take a weekend trip to Glacier Park to relax. He was so calm, so reasonable. He made me feel like I was being irrational, like my feelings weren't real. Michael spoke up, his voice tight with anger. He gaslit her for months. He made her think she was crazy for wanting to leave. Chen looked at Michael. And you were there, supporting her. I cared about her, Michael said firmly. I knew she was unhappy. Anyone could see it if they bothered to look. But everyone was so focused on the perfect wedding, the perfect couple. No one asked Emily what she actually wanted. Emily continued, her words tumbling out now. The third time was 2 weeks before the wedding. I told Daniel I couldn't do it. I said I didn't love him the way a wife should love a husband. And he got angry, really angry. He grabbed my arms and shook me, said I was being selfish and cruel. He said I'd already sent out invitations, people had bought plane tickets, we'd put deposits down. He said I couldn't back out now. It would humiliate him, humiliate both our families. Chen leaned forward. Did he hurt you? He left bruises on my arms. I covered them with long sleeves. I didn't tell anyone. I was ashamed. I thought maybe it was my fault for leading him on, for saying yes when I wasn't sure. So you called the crisis helpline, Chen said gently. Emily nodded. 3 times. The counselor told me I had options. She said I didn't have to marry someone I didn't want to marry. But she also said that leaving an abusive relationship can be dangerous. She asked if I had somewhere safe to go. And that's when you and Michael made your plan. Michael moved to sit on the arm of Emily's chair, putting his arm around her shoulders. I told her I'd help her. I'd already quit my job at the dental office. I couldn't stand watching her suffer anymore. I got a job in Spokane as a cover, made it look like I was moving away. But really, I stayed in Montana waiting. Emily took over the story. The day I disappeared, November 22nd, I went through all the motions, picked up my dress, went to the coffee shop. I was trying to work up the courage to just leave, to just drive away and never come back. Michael was supposed to meet me at that rest stop near Wolf Creek. We'd planned it for weeks. What happened after you left your car on Highway 200? Webb asked. Michael was waiting in his truck about a mile down the road, hidden behind some trees. I drove my car to that spot, took my purse, locked the doors, and walked to where he was parked. We drove south through back roads, avoiding highways and traffic cameras. We stayed in cheap motels, paying cash. It took us 3 days to get to Nevada. Chen tried to imagine it. The fear, the adrenaline, the constant looking over their shoulders. Why Nevada? It's far from Montana. Different climate, different culture. Michael had a cousin here who helped us get set up with new identities. Gave us this house to rent under the table. We paid cash for everything, groceries, utilities, gas. I never got a driver's license under the name Anna Blake. I just disappeared into this life. And you never once thought about contacting your family? Your sister? Your mother? Chen couldn't keep the edge out of her voice now. They've been searching for you for 4 years, Emily. They thought you were dead. Emily's face crumpled. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I know. God, I know. It's been killing me. But I was so scared. Scared that if anyone knew where I was, Daniel would find me. Scared that my mother would convince me to come back. Scared that I'd lose my nerve and return to that life. This was the only way I could be free. Did Daniel ever actually threaten your life? Webb asked pointedly. Emily hesitated. Not in words, but the way he looked at me sometimes. The way he held my arms that day, the desperation in his voice. I was afraid of what he might do if I left. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I overreacted. But at the time, I felt like I was in danger. Chen sat back, processing everything. The picture that emerged was complex and troubling. Daniel Carter, the grieving fiancé who'd spent 4 years searching for his lost love, was also potentially a controlling, manipulative partner who'd ignored Emily's attempts to end their relationship. But was he dangerous? Or had Emily's fear been disproportionate? There's something else you need to understand, Michael said. Emily had panic attacks. Bad ones. Whenever she'd try to talk to Daniel about canceling the wedding, she'd have an attack afterward. She'd hyperventilate. Couldn't breathe. I found her having one in the parking lot at work once. She was terrified. Chen made notes. Panic attacks suggested genuine fear, not just cold feet. But they also weren't proof of physical danger. Who sent the anonymous tip? Webb asked suddenly. Who told us where to find you? Emily and Michael exchanged glances. Emily spoke first. We don't know. We've been trying to figure that out. Only one person knew where we were, Michael's cousin Derek. But he swore he'd never tell anyone. He's the one who helped us disappear. We need to talk to Derek, Chen said. Michael shook his head. He died. Car accident last October. That's why we thought we were safe. He was the only link to our past. Chen felt a piece click into place. Did Derek have any family? Anyone who might have known about you? He had an ex-wife, Michael said slowly. They divorced years ago, but they stayed in touch. She might have found something in his belongings after he died. Papers, maybe, with this address. Or she saw you together at some point, Webb suggested. Recognized Emily from news coverage and decided to finally say something. It made sense. Derek's ex-wife, motivated by guilt or maybe anger at being left out of the secret, had sent the tip, but none of that mattered now. What mattered was what came next. Chen looked at Emily directly. Here's where we stand. You're an adult who left voluntarily. No crime was committed, at least not by you. But you need to close your missing persons case officially. You need to give a formal statement and you need to consent to a DNA test to confirm your identity beyond any doubt. And then what? Emily asked, her voice small. Then you decide what you want to do. You can stay here with Michael, you can return to Montana. You can go anywhere you want. But your family will know you're alive. And Daniel will know. There's no keeping this secret anymore. Emily buried her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Michael held her, whispering something Chen couldn't hear. There's one more thing, Chen said quietly. The search for you cost the county hundreds of thousands of dollars. Volunteer hours, helicopter searches, FBI resources. Legally, you could be charged with making a false report if the prosecutor decides to pursue it. I can't promise you won't face consequences. Michael's eyes flashed with anger. She was running for her life. Maybe, Chen said. But that's for the courts to decide if it comes to that. Right now, my job is to close this case and get Emily the help she needs. Over the next 3 hours, Emily gave a full statement, recorded and transcribed. She answered every question, described every detail of her disappearance in the 4 years that followed. Webb arranged for a DNA test at a local clinic, a simple cheek swab that would be sent to the state lab for analysis. As the sun began to set over the Nevada desert, casting long shadows across the living room, Chen made the phone call she'd been dreading. Daniel Carter answered immediately. Detective Chen? Is it her? Yes, Daniel. It's Emily. She's alive and safe. She's been living in Nevada under a different name. Silence. Then, I'm getting on a plane. Give me the address. Daniel, I can't do that. Emily doesn't want to see you right now. She's given a statement explaining everything. You'll receive a copy through official channels. She's my fiancée. I have a right. No, Chen interrupted firmly. You don't. Emily is an adult who chose to leave. She has the right to decide who she sees and when. If you show up here uninvited, it's harassment. Do you understand? More silence. Then Daniel's voice, cold and controlled. She left with him, didn't she? The maintenance guy. They were having an affair. That's not for me to discuss. What I can tell you is that Emily is safe, she's healthy, and she's exactly where she wants to be. The case is closed. Chen hung up before Daniel could respond. She looked at Emily, who sat curled up on the couch, Michael's arm around her. He's going to tell everyone, Emily whispered. The whole country will know what I did. Chen nodded. Yes, this story will go public within days. You need to prepare yourself for that. But Emily, you survived. You got out. Whatever mistakes you made along the way, you chose life over a situation that was destroying you. That matters. As Chen and Webb drove away from the house, heading back toward Reno in the gathering darkness, Webb spoke. Think the prosecutor will charge her? Doubt it. No false report was actually filed. She never claimed to be kidnapped or hurt. She just disappeared. That's not illegal. What about Daniel Carter? You think he was really abusive? Chen stared out at the desert landscape, lit now by the last rays of sunset. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Was Daniel physically violent? Maybe not. But controlling, manipulative, refusing to accept Emily's decision to leave? Absolutely, that's its own kind of abuse. And Emily? She let hundreds of people search for her, let her family suffer for 4 years. I know. Chen's voice was heavy. There are no heroes in this story, Marcus. Just people making impossible choices and living with the consequences. 2 days later, the DNA results came back. The woman living as Anna Blake in Fernley, Nevada was definitively Emily Warren. The case was officially closed. And then, the media firestorm began. The story broke on a cold Friday morning in late January 2023, exactly 1 week after Detective Sarah Chen had confirmed Emily Warren's identity. A reporter from the Billings Gazette, tipped off by a source inside the Helena Police Department, published the first article at 6 a.m. Mountain Time. Within an hour, it had been picked up by the Associated Press, and by noon, Emily Warren's face was on every major news outlet in the country. Runaway bride. Missing Montana woman found alive after 4 years. Living with lover under assumed name. The headlines were sensational, designed for maximum click-through rates. Cable news networks ran the story on loop, showing side-by-side photos of Emily on her engagement day, radiant in a white dress, smiling beside Daniel, and a grainy surveillance photo from Nevada, showing a thin woman with shorter hair walking into a grocery store. In Helena, the reaction was swift and polarized. Some people expressed relief that Emily was alive. Others felt betrayed, angry about the resources wasted, the volunteer hours spent searching frozen forests, the emotional toll on a community that had grieved for her. Patricia Warren, Emily's mother, held a press conference at noon that day. She stood on the steps of the Lewis and Clark County Courthouse, bundled in a black wool coat against the bitter wind, her face pale and drawn. Her younger daughter Claire stood beside her, red-eyed but silent. "Our family is grateful that Emily is alive," Patricia said, her voice shaking. "But we are devastated by the choices she made. For 4 years we believed our daughter was dead. We mourned her. We held vigils. We never gave up hope of finding her body so we could lay her to rest, to discover that she was alive this entire time, living with him. It's a betrayal we cannot comprehend." A reporter shouted a question. "Mrs. Warren, did you know your daughter was unhappy? Did she try to call off the wedding?" Patricia's face hardened. "My daughter was not unhappy. She was excited to marry Daniel. They were perfect together. Whatever this man, this Michael Harlow, told her, whatever he convinced her to believe, it was a lie. He manipulated her. He destroyed her life and ours." Claire leaned into the microphone. "Emily, if you're watching this, please come home. Please talk to us. We love you. We just want to understand." But Emily wasn't watching. At that moment, she was sitting in the small living room of the house on Desert Rose Lane. The curtains drawn, her phone turned off. Michael sat beside her, holding her hand. Neither of them had slept more than a few hours since the story broke. "I need to release a statement," Emily said quietly. "I can't let my mother control the narrative. People need to know the truth." Michael squeezed her hand. "Are you sure? Once you speak publicly, there's no taking it back. The whole world will have an opinion about you. They already do. At least if I explain myself, some people might understand." That afternoon, Emily's lawyer, a sharp woman named Karen Delgado from Reno who specialized in media crises, helped her draft a statement. It was released at 5 p.m. Pacific Time through a press release service and posted simultaneously on a new Instagram account, created specifically for this purpose. Statement from Emily Warren. "My name is Emily Warren. For the past 4 years, I have been living in Nevada under a different name. I want to address the questions many people have and explain why I made the choices I did. In November 2019, I was days away from marrying a man I no longer wanted to marry. I tried multiple times to end our engagement, but each time I tried, I was told I was making a mistake, that I was too stressed, too emotional, that I didn't know what I wanted. I was made to feel that my feelings didn't matter, that I owed it to everyone else to go through with the wedding. I began to experience severe anxiety and panic attacks. I felt trapped. I felt like my life was not my own. I reached out to a crisis helpline multiple times because I didn't know where else to turn. I'm not proud of how I handled the situation. I should have been braver. I should have simply canceled the wedding and faced the consequences. Instead, I ran. I faked my disappearance because I believed it was the only way to truly escape and start over. I know my actions caused immense pain to my family, to the community, and to the search volunteers who dedicated time and resources to finding me. For that, I am deeply sorry. I never intended to hurt anyone. I was desperate and scared, and I made a terrible decision. I am now asking for privacy as I try to process everything and decide how to move forward. I am safe, I am healthy, and I am finally free to live my life on my own terms. To my family, I love you, and I hope one day you can forgive me." The statement went viral within minutes. Social media exploded with reactions. Twitter, now rebranded as X, was ablaze with hashtags Emily Warren, Runaway Bride, Freedom or Selfishness. The discourse split sharply along ideological lines. Some people rallied to Emily's defense, particularly women who shared their own stories of leaving controlling relationships. They praised her courage, called her a survivor, argued that she had every right to disappear if she felt unsafe. If Emily felt trapped, she had every right to leave. No one owes anyone a wedding, period. Y'all have never been in a manipulative relationship and it shows. Sometimes running is the only option. Everyone judging Emily. Ask yourselves, have you ever felt so powerless that disappearing seemed like the only solution? But others were less sympathetic. They focused on the resources wasted, the lies told, the family left to grieve. They called Emily selfish, cowardly, manipulative. 4 years she let people think she was dead. That's not brave, that's cruel. If she was really in danger, why not go to the police? Why stage an elaborate disappearance? This was calculated. Imagine being her mom, planning a funeral, only to find out your daughter was alive and just didn't want to deal with an awkward conversation. Daniel Carter remained silent for 3 days. He didn't respond to reporters camped outside his house. He didn't post on social media. He simply went to work at the bank each morning and returned home each evening, his face blank, his eyes hollow. Then, on Monday evening, he gave an exclusive interview to a primetime news program. The segment was titled, "The Man Emily Left Behind." Daniel sat in his living room, the same house he'd bought for his future with Emily, wearing a crisp button-down shirt and looking directly into the camera. His eyes were sad but steady. His voice was calm, measured, heartbreakingly composed. "I loved Emily with everything I had," Daniel said. "I thought we were building a life together. I thought we were happy. If she was unhappy, if she felt trapped, I wish she had told me. I would have listened. I would have let her go. Instead, she vanished, and I spent 4 years of my life searching for her, believing she'd been hurt or killed. That's time I'll never get back." The interviewer, a woman with sympathetic eyes and perfect hair, leaned forward. "Emily claims in her statement that she tried to end the engagement multiple times. Is that true?" Daniel paused, as if choosing his words carefully. "Emily did have moments of doubt, but that's normal before a wedding. I encouraged her to talk about her feelings. I tried to support her. I never forced her to do anything. The idea that I was controlling or abusive, that's not true. And it's deeply hurtful to hear those accusations when I can't defend myself without looking like the bad guy. Did you ever grab her? Did you ever leave bruises on her arms?" Daniel's face shifted, a flash of something that might have been anger quickly suppressed. "We had one argument. One. I reached out to hold her, to keep her from walking away before we could talk things through. I didn't hurt her. I would never hurt her. If she felt scared, that breaks my heart, but I'm not the villain she's making me out to be." The interviewer nodded sympathetically. "What do you want people to know?" "I want people to know that I'm a victim here too. I lost 4 years of my life. I lost the woman I loved. And now I'm being painted as some kind of monster. I'm not. I'm just a man who loved someone, and she chose to destroy everything rather than have an honest conversation." The interview was devastating in its effectiveness. Daniel came across as reasonable, wounded, and dignified. By the time it aired, public opinion had begun to shift. Maybe Emily wasn't the victim she claimed to be. Maybe she was the one who'd been manipulative all along. Back in Nevada, Emily watched the interview with tears streaming down her face. "He's lying," she whispered. "He's making himself look like the victim." Karen Delgado, sitting beside her, nodded grimly. "That's what abusers do. They flip the narrative. They make you look unstable, emotional, unreasonable. And because they're so calm and composed, people believe them. What do I do? How do I fight this? You don't. Not publicly. Anything you say now will look defensive. The court of public opinion has already made up its mind. Some people will believe you. Some will believe him. Most will decide based on their own biases and experiences." Michael paced the room, his hands clenched into fists. "This is bullshit. That guy gaslit her for months, and now he's doing it to the entire country." "Maybe," Karen said. "Or maybe his version is what he genuinely believes. Abusers often don't see themselves as abusers. They rationalize their behavior, convince themselves they were justified." Over the following weeks, the story continued to dominate headlines. Think pieces were written analyzing Emily's choices from every possible angle. Podcasts devoted entire episodes to the case. A television producer reached out about optioning the story for a limited series. The Helena Police Department released a statement confirming that Emily Warren would not face criminal charges. The county attorney had reviewed the case and determined that while Emily's actions were ethically questionable, they didn't constitute a crime. She hadn't filed a false police report. She hadn't defrauded anyone. She'd simply left. But the damage was done. To Emily's reputation, to Daniel's reputation, to both families. Helena, Montana became synonymous with the case. Tourists started showing up. taking selfies in front of St. Helena's Cathedral where the wedding never happened, driving past the spot on Highway 200 where Emily's car had been found. Detective Sarah Chen, meanwhile, gave a single press conference at the request of her department. She stood at a podium, flanked by her captain, and read a prepared statement. The investigation into Emily Warren's disappearance has been closed. We have confirmed her identity through DNA testing. She is alive, safe, and living voluntarily in Nevada. We are grateful for the volunteers and community members who assisted in the search efforts over the past 4 years. While the outcome is not what anyone expected, we are relieved to bring closure to this case. A reporter shouted, "Detective Chen, do you believe Emily was telling the truth about feeling trapped?" Chen paused. "Off script," she answered honestly. "I believe Emily was deeply unhappy and didn't know how to escape her situation in a healthy way. I also believe she made choices that caused real harm to real people. Both things can be true." That soundbite played on every news station for days. In early February, Emily's sister Claire made an unexpected move. She posted a long message on her Facebook page, not attacking Emily but not defending her either. "My sister is alive. That's the most important thing. But our family is shattered. My parents are devastated. I'm angry and confused and heartbroken." Emily says she was scared and trapped. Maybe that's true. But she also chose to let us believe she was dead for 4 years. She chose to let us grieve. That choice has consequences. I don't know if I'll ever speak to Emily again. Right now I can't. But I hope she finds peace. And I hope she understands what her freedom cost the rest of us. The post was shared thousands of times. It became the definitive statement from Emily's family. Measured, honest, devastatingly sad. By mid-February, the media frenzy had begun to die down. News stories replaced Emily's. A celebrity scandal, a political crisis, a natural disaster. The news cycle moved on, as it always does. But for those directly involved, Emily, Daniel, the families, the community of Helena, the aftermath would last much longer. Emily remained in Nevada, living quietly with Michael. She'd deleted her Instagram account after releasing her statement, unwilling to engage with the endless stream of judgment and opinion. She got a job under her real name at a small bookstore in Fernley, where her co-workers knew her story but agreed not to discuss it. Michael continued working construction, providing stability and support. Some days were good. Other days, Emily would wake up crying, overwhelmed by guilt and grief for everything she'd lost and everything she'd caused. Daniel, meanwhile, became something of a reluctant celebrity. He was invited to speak at events about resilience and healing. He started a foundation to support families of missing persons. He wrote a memoir, announced in March with a substantial publishing deal, titled Waiting for Emily, a story of love, loss, and moving on. The book would be released in the fall of 2023, coinciding with the 4-year anniversary of Emily's disappearance. Advance buzz suggested it would be a bestseller. Detective Chen closed Emily's file and placed it in the archives. She'd solved the case technically, but she didn't feel triumphant. She felt tired and sad, aware that she'd witnessed a tragedy where there were no clear villains or heroes, just flawed people making impossible choices and living with irreversible consequences. Late one night in March, Chen sat alone in her office. The case file opened one last time before it went into storage. She looked at the photos of Emily from 2019, the engagement pictures, the missing person posters, the abandoned car in the snow. Then she looked at the recent photos from Nevada. Emily in her statement video, older and wearier, but also somehow lighter, unburdened. Chen thought about freedom and what it costs. She thought about truth and how it's never as simple as people want it to be. And she closed the file, finally, letting Emily Warren disappear one last time, not into the Montana wilderness, but into the private life she'd fought so desperately to claim. The case was closed, but the questions would linger forever. 18 months after the story broke, June 2024, the dust had finally begun to settle. The national media had long since moved on to fresher scandals and more sensational stories. The true crime podcasts had exhausted every angle of analysis. Daniel Carter's memoir, Waiting for Emily, had indeed become a bestseller, spending 12 weeks on the New York Times list before gradually fading from prominence. Life, as it always does, continued. But for those at the center of the storm, moving forward proved far more complicated than the world realized. Emily Warren, she'd reclaimed her real name legally in March 2024, stood at the window of a different house now, this one in Sparks, Nevada, just east of Reno. She and Michael had moved in April, seeking a fresh start away from the address that had become public knowledge. The new place was larger, with a small backyard where they'd planted tomatoes and herbs. It felt more permanent than the house on Desert Rose Lane ever had. It felt like a home rather than a hiding place. Emily was 33 now. Her hair had grown back to shoulder length, though she kept it a shade darker than her natural color. Not to hide, but simply because she liked it. She'd gained back some of the weight she'd lost during the years of living in fear. She looked healthier, stronger, but the shadows under her eyes suggested that peace remained elusive. She worked full-time now at a non-profit organization that helped women leave abusive relationships, a choice that had raised eyebrows among critics who questioned whether Emily had truly been abused or simply unhappy. But Emily found purpose in the work. She answered crisis calls, helped women develop safety plans, connected them with resources. She never told the women her full story, but they sensed she understood them in a way that came from experience rather than textbook training. Michael had proposed to her in February, a simple moment in their living room. No ring, just a quiet question. "Do you want to make this official?" Emily had said yes without hesitation. They'd married at a courthouse in March with no guests, no photos posted online, no announcement, just two people choosing each other with full awareness of what that choice meant. But Emily's relationship with her biological family remained shattered, perhaps irreparably. Patricia Warren had given one final interview 6 months after Emily was found, on a morning talk show that specialized in family reconciliation stories. The producers had hoped for a tearful reunion segment, but Patricia had made clear she wasn't interested in reconciliation. "My daughter is dead to me," Patricia had said, her voice cold and final. "The Emily I knew, the Emily I raised, would never have done what she did. This woman who calls herself Emily Warren, she's a stranger. She made her choice when she let us believe she was dead for 4 years. Now she has to live with that choice, and I have to live with mine." The host had pressed, "But don't you want to at least hear her side? Talk to her?" "I've heard her side. She was unhappy. She felt trapped. Well, life is hard. Marriage requires compromise. You don't just run away because things get difficult. You face your problems like an adult." Emily chose the coward's way out, and she can live with that decision alone. Emily had watched that interview once, alone in her living room, and hadn't cried. She'd moved past crying about her mother months earlier. Now she just felt a distant sadness, mourning not for what was lost, but for what had never really existed in the first place. Her sister Claire had taken a different approach. She'd sent Emily a letter in April 2024. Not warm, but not entirely cold either. It was honest. "Emily, I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive you for what you put us through, but I'm trying to understand. I've started therapy to work through my anger and confusion. My therapist asked me to write down my feelings, and I decided to send them to you. I was angry for a long time. I felt betrayed. I spent 4 years believing my sister was dead, and then I found out you chose to leave, chose to let me grieve. That's not something I can just get over. But I've also been thinking about the person you were before you disappeared. I remember how anxious you seemed in those last months, how you'd changed, quieter, more withdrawn. At the time, I thought it was wedding stress. Now I wonder if it was something more." Emily kept Claire's letter in her nightstand. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something, a small opening after years of silence. Meanwhile, Daniel Carter's life unraveled. His memoir's success quickly soured when journalists began investigating. Former girlfriends described him as charming but controlling, jealous, manipulative, unable to let go. A long-form article detailed a pattern of emotional dominance, giving weight to Emily's version of events. Daniel denied the accusations through his publicist, calling them false and opportunistic, but the damage was done. Sales plummeted. His foundation lost donors, and he quietly returned to his banking job, polite but withdrawn. In May 2024, he emailed Emily. She hesitated before opening it. He wrote that he'd been in therapy, learning about codependency and controlling behavior. He said he hadn't meant to hurt her. He'd panicked, believed he could fix her fear, and only realized too late how much harm he caused. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he wrote. "I just wanted you to know I'm trying to understand my part in everything. I'm sorry I made you feel like leaving was your only option." Emily showed it to Michael. "It's the most honest thing he's ever said," she admitted. Then she replied briefly, "Thank you for the apology. I wish you peace, but I'm not coming back. Please move on." She sent it, blocked his email, and felt lighter. By summer, Emily had found a fragile peace. She accepted that many would always judge her harshly, but she'd made the only choice she could at 28, drowning under expectations and fear. Maybe she could have left differently, but leaving had saved her. One July evening, she and Michael sat under the Nevada sky. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "I regret the pain," she said, "but not leaving. I'd still do it. Will we ever stop being the runaway bride and her lover? Maybe not to the world," Emily smiled, "but to each other we already are." Elsewhere, Daniel lived quietly. Claire was in therapy, still torn between anger and love, and Detective Chen, now retiring, told a young officer, "It doesn't matter what I think." Emily believed she was in danger. She had the right to leave. We can judge how, but not that she did. The case was closed, taught in training as a lesson about assumptions. The missing woman who wasn't missing. The perfect couple that wasn't perfect. Emily Warren had disappeared from one life and built another. The cost was immense, but she survived. Because real life has no perfect endings, only people learning to live with the choices they've made. Emily Warren was alive, and she was free.